Do you ever feel discouraged and overwhelmed by the physical symptoms of social anxiety? And they always seem to hit you like a ton of bricks just out of nowhere. Whether it's speaking in front of a group of people or in conversation, you tell yourself, next time it's going to be different. Next time I'm going to be more confident. And then that next time comes and the physical symptoms are just too intense and you lose control of your body. Now in this video, I want to talk about why that happens and how you can start to deactivate those alarms going off in your brain so those physical symptoms become non-existent. All right, so for those of you who don't know me, my name is Rubin and I used to suffer from severe social anxiety. I was able to overcome it a few years ago and now I help men fully overcome it as well. All right, so going back to the physical symptoms, these physical symptoms can flare up in a number of situations. The different situations trigger these symptoms and they tend to be like a feeling like you have a lump here in your throat, feeling like you have a lump in your solar plexus, rapid heartbeat, feeling like you can't breathe, so shallowness of the breath, your memory going blank, your voice quivering and shaking, and it can even be worse. You can start to feel dizzy, nauseated, sweaty palms. Some people feel like they always blush. So they get really discouraged because they keep blushing and it's really embarrassing for them. Obviously, I don't have that problem. But these are the intense physical symptoms that get triggered in these situations. And I remember this very vividly. My physical symptoms used to be super intense, especially in the work setting, right? So when I used to go to these work meetings, I would be in these work meetings, and this is typical, right? The person running the meeting, they would say, let's go around the room and let's introduce ourselves and tell each other what we do here at the company. And as soon as they said that, I would start freaking out inside. So I would get the rapid heart rate, I would get the shallowness of the breath, ruminating thoughts. I'd be already gone in my head and they'd start going around the room. And what happened for me was the typical kind of behavior or the typical defense mechanism for myself was to leave my body. I was highly dissociative, they call that, when you no longer embody yourself. So I would typically run away in my head. And by the time it got to me, I was just so confused that I didn't know anybody's name because I wasn't there. Everyone's introducing themselves, but I'm not in my body paying attention to who they are, what they do with the company. They get around to me and I'd be shocked, confused, dazed, and I would just try to speak, but my voice would shake and quiver. It was really, really embarrassing for me. It was really, really intense. And I started to get really, really discouraged. And it got to the point because I would get into these socially anxious shame cycles, right? So what I would typically do is I would avoid those meetings at all costs. I would try to make up some excuse like, oh, I can't attend this time because I'm working on something really important. Anything to not avoid those physical symptoms flaring up. But sooner or later, I would have to attend the meeting. And when I was put on the spot to speak and the physical symptoms came up, I would leave the meeting beating up on myself, shaming myself, going on Google, trying to figure out what's wrong with me, why that happens, that sort of thing. So I would enter these shame loops, these socially anxious cycles or loops. So you do whatever you can to avoid those symptoms flaring up. And when you're put on the spot and they flare up, you beat yourself up and you get hard on yourself about why that happened, why you're such an odd person, why you're so awkward, that type of thing. That's what I would do to myself. And I started to get extremely, extremely discouraged because I noticed that I was passing up a lot of opportunities at work. And I was passing up a lot of opportunities to connect with people and have deep, intimate connections and relationships with people because I would just avoid all of that stuff at all cost because I didn't want to feel those physical symptoms come up and have to feel ashamed of myself after the fact. And so I wrote an ebook and it goes further into my story. If you want to learn more about my story, it tells you everything that I went through, all of the trials and tribulations that I had to go through and how I finally stumbled on what I needed to fully overcome the social anxiety. So I'll link it below the video. You can download that and read through that. So why do these physical symptoms exist? And the short answer is it's a part of our fight or flight system, right? People typically know this fight or flight system, but what people aren't aware of is that everything's triggered by an emotion, right? So as soon as that person at work says, we're going to go around the room, introduce ourselves, and tell everybody what you do, right away, there's an emotion inside of me. The emotion triggers the fear triggers the fight or flight system. And what the fight or flight system does is it's sensing danger and it's causing you to get ready. Basically, it's getting you ready for survival. It's increasing your heart rate so you can run away. It's shutting down your hearing. That's another big thing people aren't aware of. It shuts down your hearing, so you can't hear what people are saying. It makes your breath shallow. It makes you hypervigilant with your eyes. And it's getting ready for you to sense danger and flee the scene. The problem is when you're in these situations, you're in like a work situation or you are in a conversation, is the first option of the fight or flight system, the flight, like the easiest way for us to feel safe again, is it's not an option. You have to be in that work meeting. You're in the conversation. You can't flee the scene. So then what happens is your fight or flight system starts kicking into overdrive for freezing. It gets ready for you to just freeze up. And that is why you typically lose your memory. You lose your voice. Your voice gets shaky because your fight or flight system is serving you in a way where it just wants you to freeze now. Unconsciously, you've made that decision in your head. You can't leave. You have to freeze. And so typically what happens in these situations is the external environment, it demands of us to speak. It demands of us to be present, be in conversation, or speak in front of the group. Maybe you're at work, you have to speak, right? And while your fight or flight system is working hard in your body to make you freeze up and not speak, you have to speak up and do those things, which is why you get a shaky voice, which is why your mind you'll try to be saying things, but your mind will be going blank because the fight or flight is making your mind go blank. It's shutting off your hearing. But because of that external situation and what you need to do at work or in conversations, you try to force it. And there's that kind of incongruence, that out of alignment that you feel inside, and you lose control of your body. Now, how do you start to overcome these physical symptoms? How do you get to the point where they're non-existent? And how you do that is the main principle here, guys, that you need to learn is internal and external focus simultaneously. If you want to overcome social anxiety, you have to be aware of what you're feeling all the time. No exceptions. You must be aware of what you're feeling. And how do you do that? How do you become aware of what you're feeling? Be aware of what you're feeling while being able to respond to the external environment or the social situation or work meeting or whatever. You do that through body sensations. And what they typically show up, as we spoke about earlier in the video, lump in the throat, lump in your solar plexus. You have to be aware with your mind, with your focus, of what sensations are coming up here, while also speaking, while also responding to what's out there. Why do you need to do that? Is because that is how the emotions start to get processed. So as you remember, it goes, the fight or flight response goes, emotion triggers the fear, which triggers the physical symptoms. And so if you move forward and you keep ignoring these physical sensations or these emotions down here, the fear is going to continue to get triggered, right? So how do you shed light here? How do you shine some light here and start to process these emotions so that the fear doesn't get triggered, therefore the physical symptoms don't get triggered? You do that by keeping your focus here and here, internal focus and external focus at the same time. Now, another important point I want to talk about is the concept of self-soothing. You want to be self-soothing, and it's absolutely crucial. How do you do that? It is extremely important to realize that in these situations, there's an aspect of your personality or part of your personality that is extremely scared of the situation. And it's extremely important to be able to shift out of that into your higher, more authentic self, your higher energy. And so how do you do that? You speak to yourself with compassion and in the second voice. So you stay aware here, and you say things like, you are okay, I'm with you. And what that does is it separates you from this highly anxious, activated, kind of panicked part of you. When you say you are okay, it shifts you into this higher energy so you can speak from this place instead of this more panicked state of you. Okay? It's a part of your personality. Start to realize that there is multiple aspects of your personality, multiplicity of the mind. It's completely normal, guys, but start to be aware of it. It's going to take a lot of the heat off of these situations. So in summary, what do? Internal and external focus simultaneously. Be aware of the demands of the external environment. Be aware of what's going on internally. How do you do that? Being aware of the sensations in your throat, solar plexus, and self-soothing. Speaking to yourself in the second person so you can shift out of that frightened, scared energy and into that higher energy that's in all of us. All right, so if you found this video helpful, guys, what you can do is join my private Facebook group. I'll link it below the video. We got a great group of guys. They are there. They're ready to hold space to support you. I'll be in there. You can ask me questions. So you're free to join the group, and I would love to have you in there. Also, if you need a little bit more help with this, I've created a free video training for you, and I'll link it below the video as well. So be sure to check that out because it's going to go further into the actual system we use to fully overcome this social anxiety. As you remember, I said it was the emotions, fear, symptoms. And what this free training does is going to go further into how you reprocess these emotions down here so these fears and physical symptoms don't get triggered anymore. So be sure to check out that free training, and I will talk to you soon. All right, guys.